But first, welcome to the real story. Another day, another all-time record high for oil. It is now near $120 a barrel. This time, I think it was a strike at a refinery in the UK and an attack on a pipeline in Nigeria that is to blame. Which makes me wonder, what would it be like if somebody like, I don't know, let's just say Iran, ever decided to use oil as an actual weapon against us? You think? Most people, including our politicians, find it pretty convenient to blame the high price of oil on the usual suspects, OPEC or Exxon, that evil corporation. But the real story is, there's another group of elitist men who lock themselves in a room every month and make decisions that impact what Americans will pay for oil far more than virtually anybody else. They're called the Fed. It seems counterintuitive that our own Federal Reserve Bank would have anything to do with oil, but actually it's pretty simple. The Fed controls interest rates. Interest rates impact the value of our dollar, oil priced in dollars. In other words, when the Fed cuts our interest rates, as they've been doing relentlessly here, the real price of oil for Americans goes up. Just today, the head of OPEC came out and warned that the price of oil may go up to $200 a barrel, and there's nothing they can do about it. Listen to what he said. Quote, "Prices are high due to the fact of the recession in the United States, a situation which has an effect on the devaluation of the dollar, and therefore each time the dollar falls 1%, the price of a barrel rises by $4. There it is, right from the horse's mouth. But if you need, more evidence, just look what's happened since the summer of 2001. If you measure it in euros, the price of oil is up 129%. Measured in dollars, oil is up 321%. Later this week, our Federal Reserve meets again to talk about yet another interest rate cut. Oh, keep them coming, boys. If that happens, hopefully they will say that this is the last, but if it happens, you'll probably see Wall Street and the markets cheer over all the cheap money and the fast profits. But for those of us who are just trying to drive to the market, the only thing it will mean is more expensive gas. John Tamny is a senior economist at Wainwright and the editor of Real Clear Markets. John, explain the link to the dollar to oil. I have to tell you, I think 6 months I've been reading books that make blood shoot out of my eyes, trying to understand the dollar and the Fed and everything else. It's complex, but really, in this case, it's not.
No, it's not. There's all this talk about expensive oil, and oil really isn't that expensive. What's in fact the case is that the dollar is cheap, and as you pointed out, when the dollar falls in value, this immediately shows up in commodities, most specifically the oil price. Oil does not get expensive because of OPEC. It doesn't get expensive because of Russian machinations. It gets expensive and it bounces around when the dollar's value bounces around, and we've had lots of weakness in recent years, hence the high oil price.
Okay, but it also bounces around not just because of the falling dollar, but because things are uncertain, and so people, big, giant hedge funds, et cetera, take their money out of the stock market and they say, you know what? Commodities, I can make so much more money over here than in, treasuries or anything else, and so they bet, if you will, on commodities. No?
Yeah, they do to some degree, but I'm always skeptical of the speculation argument for the simple reason that if hedge funds had that kind of control over any commodity's price, why not jack it up to $200 tomorrow? Furthermore, back when it was at $10 in 1998, were they feeling benevolent at the time? I think the hedge fund's role is very much overrated in this. This is a dollar phenomenon. It always has been. And if we fix the dollar's value, what you'll find is that the oil price will very quickly
go down,
drop, and it will become very stable over time.
Okay. Can you explain one more thing for me? Because I don't get this. How does devaluing the dollar help us on our future obligations, lowering the cost of things like Social Security or lowering that debt? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's a good question. The figure the government can tax us two ways. It can raise the penalty on our work with an income tax rate, or it can just devalue its future obligations by devaluing the dollar. So the Fed can tax us with a dollar devaluation, and it also lowers the cost of all the things that you mentioned, from Social Security to Medicare. This is a great way to reduce its debt.
So,
and they do it on our backs.
Do you think that that is an intentional thing that they've been doing, trying to get that debt down like that?
I think there's something to it. Look at historically, there are very few deflations throughout economic history whereby a government raises the value of its currency persistently, but there are numerous instances of inflations throughout history, as that's a way to lower your debt. So I do think there is an inclination to devalue the currency because it also reduces.
Last question, real quick, 10 seconds. Are we going to get another Fed cut, and how much do you really think we could hit $200 a barrel?
I don't think we'll hit $200 a barrel, because I think ultimately there is institutional knowledge of the Fed that when gold and oil get this high, that this is inflationary. Eventually the Treasury will come in, define the dollar, and I think we'll solve this problem. So I don't see $200 a barrel.
All right, John, thanks. Now.